Shalom, family. So we know the Lord warned us very clearly with many signs, and we've covered them many times on this channel. One of them that we know very well and we see all over the world, and mainly at this stage of the game in the European theater and in the Middle East, the war in Israel with all of her neighbors and the proxy terrorist groups, the situation in Ukraine with Russia, and that's not even talking about cartel wars and drug wars and all the other things going on and various nations getting involved and threatening each other. There will be wars and rumors of wars. Nations will rise against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms. And we are seeing all these things come to play right now and in effect. So now in Africa, there's an entire boiling up of a conflict and a war that threatens to spill out into regional other nations and draw them into a larger African conflict. And it's exploding by the day, with rhetoric with each other, between leaders, with soldiers getting killed and chaos on the ground, civilians being displaced. So it is very confusing. So let me run you through a couple of the facts so that you've got a basic understanding of what's happening here, because we all understand what's happening with Ukraine, what's happening in Israel and the Middle East. Let me put you in the picture with what's happening in Africa right now. Now, the Rwanda DRC tensions, it begins with M23 fighters that have been pressing to capture the key city of Goma for months, and they intensified their offensive in the recent days. The M23 rebel group declared the key city of Goma under its control, signaling a major blow to the Congolese army and a serious escalation in the years-long conflict that has seen hundreds of people killed and millions displaced in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, the DRC. Now, the world doesn't talk about it all the time, but this thing's been going on for a long time, and civilians have been suffering for a long time. Goma's reported capture last week Monday came after M23, which the United Nations says is backed by neighboring Rwanda, very important, advanced rapidly on Congolese army positions last week. Throughout the day, a barrage of gunfire and explosions rocked the city, which is the capital of the North Kivu province and a regional hub for security and humanitarian efforts. Hundreds of thousands of residents and previously displaced people, so they'd already been displaced from this war and moved to this area, fled to neighboring towns in panic on Monday. Social media footage showed huge crowds moving on foot and motorbike, carrying luggage on their heads and backs. The crisis, reignited in 2022, displaced millions of civilians in eastern DRC. More than 237,000 people displaced in January alone, according to a recent report from the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. M23 is seeking, the actual cause here, they're seeking to control the critical mineral mines. It's a mineral-rich area. The group is composed of Tutsi fighters and claims to be fighting for the rights of the DRC's minority Tutsi population. It emerged in 2012 after a group from the armed forces of the DRC broke away, complaining of ill treatment. The DRC government and the UN accused Rwanda under President Paul Kagame of supporting M23 with soldiers and weapons in a bid to control the mineral-rich eastern DRC. Rwanda denies the charge and accuses the DRC of harboring members of the Democratic Forces of the Liberation of Rwanda, an anti-Kagame rebel group involved in 1994's Rwanda genocide. The UN estimates that there are up to 4,000 Rwandan soldiers in the DRC right now. So they are obviously working with M23. The DRC faced a resurgence of M23 violence in 2022, and the group since advanced on Goma, seizing territory in battles with the Congolese army and 2 peacekeeping missions, the UN mission to the DRC and the South African Development Community, the SADC. European mercenaries from France, Romania, and Belarus also support the Congolese army. At a UN Security Council emergency meeting on Sunday, officials condemned the M23 advance and confirmed that 13 peacekeepers were killed from Friday to Saturday. South Africa also said that they had 9 of their soldiers killed. That number has since, in the last 24 hours, gone up to 13, to fend off M23's advance on Goma. Well, the UN said 3 Malawian soldiers and 1 Uruguayan was also killed. The United States, United Kingdom, and France warned their citizens to leave Goma as residents poured out of the city. The African Union's Peace and Security Council held a meeting on Tuesday to discuss the crisis. Rwandan President Paul Kagame reacted angrily to the warning issued by South Africa following the killing of 13 members of the South African National Defence Force who were part of the regional peacekeeping force comprised of militaries from South Africa, Malawi, and Tanzania. Ramaphosa issued the warning to Rwanda, saying that hostilities against SANDF members could be taken as a declaration of war. Kagame added, if South Africa prefers confrontation, Rwanda will deal with the matter in that context any day. So he's quite willing to go to war with South Africa immediately. Now, just for context here, Rwanda is 26,000 or 2,600 kilometers squared, total size. South Africa, 1.2 million kilometers squared. That's just how big the two countries are. It's actually quite ridiculous that he's willing to go to war with us, even in our diminished state and our incompetent state. We should definitely be able to take Rwanda, but then I might be dreaming. But still, Kagame is quite ready to take it to the next level. The African nations got together days after the East African Community, the EAC, met over the escalating conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, and leaders from the Southern African Development Community, SADC, held an extraordinary summit on Friday outside Harare, Zimbabwe, to discuss the developments in the region and the effect they're having on the continent. In the course of recent days, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, appeared to be heading for a historic fallout over the charge, with Ramaphosa demanding a ceasefire from Kagame's government and Kagame openly threatening South Africa with retaliation. The Rwandan leader accused Ramaphosa of lying and distorting facts on the ground, adding that South Africa is in no position to take on the role of a peacemaker or mediator. So Kagame might be the crazy one willing to go to war with a bigger opponent and cause chaos to reach his goals and achieve his minds, but he is right. Ramaphosa is definitely very good at lying and distorting the fact, and he does that all the time. And besides that, South Africa has no place in any peacekeeping efforts, because we can't even keep peace inside our own country between different groups. So there's that too. So he's not wrong. But it'll be interesting to see how this blows out and how much more bloodshed South Africa can handle before the internal political parties tear itself apart in anger. And they're already saying, bring all the soldiers home. What are we doing there in the first place? This is embarrassing. And we're losing soldiers. For what? France told Rwanda to immediately leave DR Congo. On Thursday, they called on the Rwandan forces and Kigali-backed M23 to withdraw from the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The spokesperson said Paris supported diplomatic efforts by Angola and Kenya to mediate peace talks between Congo and Rwanda, not South Africa. Okay, and there's a good reason for that. So that, as confusing as it all sounds, is pretty much summed up into one statement. If I have to bring it all together for you, the conflict's been going for a long time. There's different splinter groups that have broken up in militaries of different countries, but the DRC is incredibly minerally rich. Rwanda, M23, those people want control of those mines so that they can get those riches. So they are backing the different groups to getting there, conquer that area, and gain control of those mines that they can then use for their own enrichment. That's basically what it's about. The fallout is, besides all the other countries, South Africa and all these other places, all these civilians that are consistently all the time for years now being displaced and murdered and affected by this entire situation. And now it's threatening to turn into a multi-country brawl. Wars and rumors of wars. So we'll keep an eye on this one as well. Shalom.